From Ticker, this is Black Belt Leader. Here's Karen Gately.
I'm Karen Gately, the founder of Corporate Dojo. On our show today, we're going to be talking about courage. Really proud to announce that we now have our sponsor on board. So we're proudly brought today and moving forward by Miller Leith Recruitment Specialist and Career Recruitment Specialist and Career Services. So we're going to be talking about how we can have the courage to do what's really needed, whether it's on a day-to-day basis, in terms of getting tough jobs done. But clearly right now, we're all in very difficult circumstances, a lot of complexities in our world, a lot of challenge. So we're very excited to have two guests joining us today to share their views on how we can build courage, how we can be courageous and take the actions that we need to at this point in time. So later in the show, we're joined by Margie Warrell. Margie is a leading speaker. She's an international best-selling author, and we're super excited to have her here. But first of all, we're joined by our regular psychotherapist, Heidi Rogers. Heidi's been providing advice and counselling to groups and organisations for many years in both Australia and the US. Heidi, welcome back to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So yeah, Heidi, obviously, I have no doubt you're working with a lot of people right now who are dealing with a great deal of anxiety and fear and concern about life and what's been thrown at them right now. Help us to see, some of the common things you are seeing. How are people responding from a psychology perspective?
I think the hard part about what's happening right now is there's so much uncertainty and there's so much powerlessness and helplessness. That inherent theme is triggering for most of us, because all of us would have at some point in our life an experience where we felt helpless or powerless. So this kind of global situation means that everyone is dealing with feelings of helplessness and powerlessness, which is triggering because most of us who have experienced helplessness or powerlessness, they were not fun times when we were feeling helpless and powerless. So this is massively triggering for every client, from little ones to old. Everyone is feeling the trauma of this.
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, obviously, as we're saying, our topic is around building courage and, being able to overcome some of those overwhelming fears. What's the advice you have for people around where we start? Because obviously it's one thing to say, just be courageous. To actually make that happen is a whole other challenge.
Well, you can't have courage without vulnerability, and vulnerability is basically, uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure, which is definitely what we're all carrying right now. So we're all in very vulnerable positions. But when you want to be courageous, you have to be vulnerable, which is kind of counterintuitive, but it's actually what makes acts of courage happen, is when we're able to tolerate that vulnerability. So the first thing I would say is getting sort of friendly with vulnerability and learning how to tolerate it. And the only way you do that is, and it's the same thing with courage, is practice. It's a muscle, and the more that you do it, the better you get at it. But a lot of times, the first time you're vulnerable, or the first time you're courageous, it feels really uncomfortable, and it just, doesn't feel nice because you're not used to it. And the more you practice it, and I guess it's just looking at, is this, when something comes in front of you, you could ask yourself, is this an opportunity for me to demonstrate courage? Is this an opportunity for me to demonstrate vulnerability? Okay, maybe it is. How can I do that in just a little way? And it's usually just stepping into, leaning into, rather than avoiding.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about vulnerability. When we say let's be vulnerable, let's embrace being vulnerable. What are we actually talking about there?
Being vulnerable is the core, is being able to tolerate uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. So if you can do those three things, which most of us can't, because those three things are really hard. I mean, uncertainty, that's the foundational core of anxiety, isn't it? That the things we get anxious about are the things that we feel uncertain about.
Yeah.
So being able to tolerate uncertainty, being able to tolerate the risk, and then emotional exposure. And it's funny because those are the definitions of vulnerability, but that's also the definition of courage.
Yeah.
So people think, I think a lot of times, that vulnerability is weakness, but that's not what vulnerability is. It's being vulnerable is being courageous. So sometimes I help clients get it by saying, if you don't quite grasp what vulnerable means, just think about what courage means. And most people go, oh, I know what courage means. And then it's like, okay, well, that's what it is.
Yeah. Absolutely. So again, help us to understand, because in my experience, I think one of the things people need to master is the ability to be comfortable with discomfort. So actually just practicing, being in a space where I do feel, whether it's anxious or, emotionally charged in whatever level, and practicing actually just being in that space and being comfortable that sometimes my body and my mind is uncomfortable.
Yeah, and it's like anything, like riding a bike, learning to swim. It's just something you have to do repeatedly, and realizing that the more that you practice, the more that you're able to act with courage. So the more that you practice vulnerability, the more you're able to, say, step into hard conversations. A lot of leaders have to have difficult conversations with staff or other stakeholders in a business. And if you're not used to practicing courage, or you're not used to practicing vulnerability, those things you then shy away from, which doesn't make you an effective leader. So if you want to be an effective leader, you have to be able to and be willing to step into discomfort. And the quickest way you can practice that is just by noticing resistance. So resistance is something that shows up every day, and it could be from, I don't want to go for a walk. Well, I went for one yesterday, so I don't need to. I'm going to have a salad and be healthy for lunch. Well, but you did have a healthy breakfast, so you can go ahead and have something junky for lunch. All these little ways that resistance just shows up in our brain. And just by recognizing, there's the resistance. I see your resistance, I see what you're doing, and I'm going to step into it, and I'm going to challenge you, and I'm going to push back by putting myself in an uncomfortable position. So that's just one little way that you can kind of practice in micro opportunities to practice challenging the resistance and building your courage.
And again, that really rings true for what I see, all the time with leaders, is that when they start to, through experience, gain evidence that things can turn out, they will be okay. So especially around, for example, tough conversations, the more leaders actually confront that space, go into it, have the conversation, and they get evidence that people are being receptive or less confronting or defensive, for example, in return, they feel more comfortable going into that again. So, again, I'd be interested in your thoughts around, how our minds work to reprogram some of those beliefs, some of those unconscious things that make us go, I'm in a danger zone now, I better not step into it. How do we just retrain our brain that that's not dangerous?
The best way to retrain your brain is to show it something different. So if your brain is trying to tell you that this is how I am, or this is what's going to happen in this meeting, or when I ever talk to this person, we always clash, you got to challenge it by showing it something different. It's not going to believe you. So for example, someone who, say, is trying to get healthy, and they are, every opportunity that they have to walk, and they sit at home and they just sit on their butt, they're not proving to their brain, no, I can get healthy. And it's not that you're saying, I'm going to go to the gym 7 days a week. You're just saying, well, we can't right now anyway, go to the gym, but you're not saying that. You're just saying, I'm going to go for a walk. So when you go for a walk, even if it's 2 minutes or 30 seconds, you're showing your brain, I'm doing the thing. So it can't argue with that. So it just is little, it doesn't have to be big. It's just little. You just have to start with little ways. So if it's having hard conversations is the hard part, or I'm not good at leading, or, some self-limiting belief, it's just challenging it in a little way. Because if I say, I'm not good at having hard conversations, but even when I was at the cafe today and my food was wrong and I sent it back, that was hard for me, maybe because I find conflict or confrontation hard. That's just a little way that you're practicing pushing back, and you're practicing stepping into courage and stepping into vulnerability.
Absolutely. So again, when you think about, somebody who is feeling overwhelmed with the fear of, let's say, for example, they've discovered that they've lost their job. Clearly, the future is very uncertain. They're not sure how they're going to get back on the horse and back into their work world. What do you say to those people around, maintaining the level of belief or confidence? And I guess what I'm really asking you is, how do we maintain hope when our mind is screaming at us that things are hopeless?
I always say you look back on the trophy cabinet. So I call the virtual trophy cabinet like the pretend cabinet where you have all of your trophies for past things that you've accomplished, or hard things that you've gotten through. And that's how you do it. I mean, that's what I'm doing. That's what I think a lot of people are doing and what I'm recommending to clients is look back on everything that you've gone through. Can you think of a time, professionally or personally, where you didn't think you were going to get out of it? You didn't think you were going to survive. You didn't think you were going to make it or get to the next level, and you did. And everyone has at least one experience where that's happened, even if it's drawing from something from primary school or getting through, exams in year 12. I don't know, like there's definitely something. There's at least one thing. Surviving a pregnancy, surviving a job interview process, and oh my God, I actually did get a job. Just the fact that you have done hard things in the past, that's what you kind of cling to in times like this. So that's my certainty. So there's all this uncertainty happening right now, globally, economically, financially. What I cling to is that I know I can do hard things because I've done them before. That's what I hold on to. That's my certainty.
Yeah. Look, that's fantastic, Heidi. Again, thank you so much for joining us. Can you remind everybody where they can find out more information about you and the work that you do?
Yes, that's just HeidiRogers.com.au, and then I'm also on Instagram, which is HeidiRogers_.
Fantastic. Great to see you again, and looking forward to seeing you in studio, hopefully in the very near future.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for having me again.
Thank you. So after the break, Margie Warrell will be joining us.
There are now more ways to watch Ticker. Download our apps for Apple and Android devices. We're live on Twitter and YouTube Live. And you can catch us on Amazon Alexa and Google Home. Head to the Ticker website for more.
Our partner Miller Leith was founded in 2012 and over the past 7 years has carved out a name synonymous with true partnerships and quality outcomes. You may know them by the blue couch logo, it's catchy. Based in Melbourne and Sydney, their focus has always been centred around true partnership with industry sectors and job groups where they have key expertise such as FMCG, retail, supply chain, engineering, quality, sales and marketing, HR and business support. Miller Leith offers talent search for permanent and contracting roles, and they also have expertise with career transition. If you're looking for an authentic talent partnership, call Miller Leith today.
Head to the Ticker website or download the Ticker apps. From Ticker, this is Black Belt Leader. Here's Karen Gately.
Welcome back to Black Belt Leader. Proudly brought to you by Miller Leith, recruitment specialists and career services. On the show today, we're talking about courage. We're exploring with a couple of our guests how we can find the ways to have the strength to get through what are undeniably incredibly complex times. I can share from my own experience, whether that be as a business owner, but also as a martial artist, that what I've learned is that we can't actually control outcomes. We can't actually control other people, we can't control events, we can't control the circumstances we find ourselves in. We only really have the power to influence how we're thinking, how we're feeling, how we're responding. So, our goal today is to help you to have some of the tools in your toolkit that you might need to start to put fears in their place, to start to move past a place of feeling overwhelmed. Again, what I want everyone to remember is if you are feeling anxious, if you are feeling depressed, if you are fearful on any level, that's entirely human. That's actually okay. So I don't think it's necessary for us to beat ourselves up. We need to be very careful that if we are really stressed through this time, that the internal dialogue is not telling us off, if you like, but it is actually recognising what's going through my head, and recognising how I can actually keep some of those thoughts in their place, or the thoughts that need to be in their place. So take, for example, if you are sitting at home, if you've lost your job, if you're really uncertain about how you're actually going to get back into the market, then the more time you spend thinking about what you don't have and how scary that is and how difficult it's going to be, that's only going to lead to your spirit being unquestionably drained. But when you are able to give yourself evidence, when you actually look for reasons why you can have faith in yourself, in your reputation, in your networks, in your skills, those thoughts are energizing. Those thoughts help us to maintain the level of energy, vitality, confidence, to move forward and to move forward strongly and achieve those outcomes. So I hope you do take from today, again, some of that advice. And to help us to do that, I'm really excited now to welcome Margie Warrell to our show. Margie is an international keynote speaker. She is the founder of Global Change. She's a best-selling author and the host of Live Brave podcast, should I say. Margie, welcome to Black Belt Leader.
Oh, hey, Karen, great to be with you.
It's really exciting to have you on the show. We start by helping, our audience to understand what it is you do. You know, obviously you're speaking to people, you're writing books. What's your core focus?
At the heart of what I do is helping people to lead themselves and others more bravely and to achieve better outcomes. And right now, obviously, at the heart of courage is action in the presence of fear. And so it's very, very relevant at this moment in history.
Absolutely, it is. And I know you've certainly been online sharing your own personal story of your husband, obviously, battling coronavirus. I certainly hope he's doing well. He is recovering. He is still in hospital, but he is recovering. Yeah, no, he was, for a very fit guy, I think he was surprised by how much it laid him flat for a solid week. But he's on the way to recovery, and that's all that really matters. That's all we're focusing on right now. Yeah. So really glad to hear that. So obviously you can share with people, you know, from your own personal experience as well as your professional experience, where they can start to confront and deal with some of the really scary things that are going on in our world right now. So where do you think people should begin to feel more courageous?
I think it starts with ourselves. As you know, Karen, all great leadership begins with self-leadership, and our ability to impact others or to manage, even to respond well to the challenges around us, really starts from the space we're operating from. Yeah. And so for anyone right now that's feeling anxious or overwhelmed, and you know, it's pretty hard not to when we're faced with so much uncertainty, say just firstly, be human, feel your feelings, know the only way through, but then be very grounded and anchored in your own values, your principles, in what it is, how you want to show up in this moment. Because when there's a lot around us that's outside our control, we have to really double down on what's within our control. So it starts with us, because the space we're operating from is going to impact all of the conversations we have. It's going to impact our own thinking, the actions we take. It's going to impact our ability to get our teams all aligned to engage what they call the rally effect in times of crisis, to get everyone pulling in the same direction. So that's certainly starting with yourself. And then, of course, obviously, making sure that we are instilling in others hope and optimism and a sense of shared mission and purpose, because organisations, to get through this tough time, obviously when there's so much working against us, we've really got to harness everybody working together with the best thinking, the most creative ideas, you know, and looking at how can we do our business better. Yeah.
Absolutely agree. You know, from my point of view, I think there's a massive opportunity right now for organisations to challenge a lot about the way they work, how they deliver their services. You know, I agree that those who are courageous and innovative and in it together, there is an opportunity to actually come out of this the other side stronger as a team and as a business. When you observe organisations and leaders who are doing the right things, obviously you've already mentioned to make sure we've got a really strong purpose so we can rally the troops around that. What are some of the ways in which leaders are making that happen? For example, when they're working from afar from those teams?
Yeah, so at times like this, I think it's risk over communication, but I think we need to be communicating every day with people, setting up a daily, whether it's 20 minutes or 30 minutes, but just to be touching base with people or sharing a message. It might just be a very virtual sort of town hall, but something that's just keeping people updated.
Yes.
And in that, I've heard some people say, just share the facts. I disagree with that. I think we have to absolutely share the facts and be very transparent. But I also think it's vital to be talking to the hearts of people too. Right now, a lot of people, empathetic leadership, empathy, compassion, that's so important to the trust right now, trust factor. People want to know you don't just care about the bottom line of the business, you care about the well-being of people too. So communicating really clearly and communicating often. There's a rule, 10 by 10 by 10. Say it 10 times in 10 different ways and people will retain 10% of the information, because a lot of people feel like they're drinking through a fire hose. There's just so much coming at us, and our cognitive ability to process everything is, and particularly if you're working from home and kids are interrupting you every 5 minutes, it goes down even more. So just making sure you're getting that through often. I think it's times when a lot of organisations already are flattened and the old hierarchical command and control modes have become very outdated. But this is certainly a time for people in leadership roles to be really connecting with people in a very humble and human way. It's not about you being the boss. You're in the trenches with everybody else, even though you might all be sitting in your own homes behind computers. Letting people know that you're in there with them, you've got their backs. Picking up, having one-on-ones and saying, how can I help you? How are you doing? Touching in with people one-on-one, but also being very clear in setting priorities and having those be, hierarchical. This is our number one mission critical right now, but this is the other things we need to do. And finally, something I talk about a lot in my own work is creating a culture of courage. Obviously, courageous leadership, creating cultures where people can be brave and they're not afraid to speak up and challenge the best thinking, because with so much change going on, it's so fluid. So the decision that was made a week ago or even yesterday may not be the best decision now, given that things are changing. And so being able to be making it really safe for people to speak up and being really agile in the decision making. And being willing to change that. Yep, that made sense a week ago, but we have new information now. And I think that agility is super important right now too.
Absolutely. And as you pointed out, creating that environment where it's not only safe, but it's desirable to share your voice, share your ideas, challenge status quo. I think now is a fabulous time for us to really challenge some of our limiting beliefs around how we work and what's possible, what's not possible. So again, if people feel that it is wanted, valued, rewarded, that they actually be part of figuring out those solutions, they're entirely more likely to step forward. And as you've said, if they feel like we are going places, we've got purpose, we have reason to believe that we can be successful through this, again, they're more likely to be energised, engaged. What do leaders do with people who are really struggling to open their minds? So if they do find themselves just frozen in, limiting belief, what kind of conversations can leaders have with their people to bring them on a new path?
Absolutely. And I think in those situations, and of course that's going to happen, there will be people who are like that. Not everyone leans towards optimism, which we know, by the way, is one of the key things during crisis. Gallup did a study of all the great crises of the last 100 years. And one of the things they look for in leaders is optimism. Yes, be brutally honest. I need to trust you with that you're being truthful, but I also need to know that you believe we're going to get through this. And so with those who are struggling to be optimistic, those who are, fear has really paralyzed them, which of course is pretty prevalent right now. I would have one-on-one conversation with them. One, just acknowledge how they're feeling. I mean, people want to feel heard. They want to get that empathy, you understand how I'm thinking, how I'm feeling, my experience of this. And so making sure people feel heard
Yes.
and that you do understand and appreciate where they're at, but then focusing their energy, because of course when all we do is focus on what scares us and what makes us anxious, the more anxious we become. And as our anxiety goes up, our cognitive functioning goes down.
Yeah.
And so helping people focus on what's within their control. Right now, there's a lot outside our control. So leaders have a role to play at shifting people's attention onto what's in your control right now. Okay, what can you do? And for those who are feeling overwhelmed, just small things. Start small. Get them doing some things that actually have them in purposeful and positive action. And of course, the more we're doing something that is meaningful, that is purposeful, that we feel is useful in this moment in time, that actually just reinforces this sense of self-efficacy, that maybe I do have more control here than I thought I did.
Absolutely. So, again, if we go back to our core theme around building courage, beyond this climate, because clearly it's incredibly relevant right now, what are some of the ways in which you see people really develop courage over time, to become a less fearful person, so that we don't have to overcome those spaces we go to, we just go there less often. What's your advice to get to that place?
Great question, Karen. It's something I'm asked a lot. And, I look at courage it's not something you either have or you don't have, and some people are born with and some weren't. It's actually a muscle. It's a learned behavior, a skill. We can develop it. So just recognize, no matter how timid you might feel or how cautious you are, you can become braver. And I wrote about that in You've Got This, how the ways we build that courage muscle isn't by waiting until we don't have any doubts and we don't have any misgivings and we're completely confident that we are going to land it beautifully, perfectly, first time, every time. It's actually giving ourselves permission to learn and to get better as we go. So, and to take action before we're ready. And that requires embracing the discomfort we feel doing that. Growth and comfort is one of my sayings I learned growing up on a farm in East Gippsland, Victoria. Growth and comfort can't ride the same horse. We cannot grow. We cannot build confidence. We cannot build courage if we're only doing what's comfortable, if we're only doing what we've done before, if we're only doing what feels safe and where we know we can't mess up, make a mistake, fall short. And so allowing yourself not to get it right, allow yourself to make mistakes, allow yourself not to be the best at whatever it is you're doing. And I know, Karen, you and I have talked previously, as coaches, as speakers, as writers, if we had waited until we were brilliant, we were J.K. Rowling before we had a book, we would never have written one. Absolutely. And so it's the same for all of us. And I always encourage people, start before you feel ready, give yourself permission to learn as you go. And when you make mistakes or you slip up or you don't get it perfectly right, just focus in what's the learning here and reframe that through the lens of the learning you've got from it, because it's in the learning that we actually get better at things. And we also build resilience too and realize it's not the end of the world. So I did something and it wasn't brilliant. The ground didn't open up beneath me. I didn't fall through it. You know what? I can do more things, and it builds our confidence for bigger and bigger things.
Love it. Margie, thank you so much for joining us. We really do appreciate you sharing all of your incredible wisdom. Where can our viewers find out more about you and the work that you're doing?
Yes, well, on my website, margiewarrell.com. Of course, I'm also on social media, LinkedIn and Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. But I invite people to pop over to my website and have a look at the resources, the videos, obviously my books and my work running leadership programs, which of course, Karen, right now I'm doing virtually, helping organisations be more resilient and courageous. So thank you.
Yeah, no, fantastic. Again, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. You take care.
Thank you. So join us next week on Black Belt Leader, proudly brought to you by Miller Leith Recruitment Specialist and Career Services. If there are topics you would like us to explore, please get in touch via our website, which is corporatedojo.com, or visit our social media channels. Thanks for joining us. And remember, you choose, will you be an ordinary or an awesome leader of people?
There are now more ways to watch Ticker. Download our apps for Apple and Android devices. We're live on Twitter and YouTube Live. And you can catch us on Amazon Alexa and Google Home. Head to the Ticker website for more.